A rocket is literally one of the hardest things you can attempt to make, but for Elon Musk, there are added challenges. The visionary billionaire has undertaken to build the largest and most powerful rocket known to humans, the Starship. So from the onset, Musk knew the task wasn't going to be easy. Many fans of space travel following the rocket's development may have been disappointed by the numerous delays. However, SpaceX is about to turn all that around by launching the Starship to orbit for the first time in June. But that is after so many changes and upgrades have been made on the Starship. What has changed, what has remained the same, and how will SpaceX carry out the first orbital launch of the Starship? Stay tuned. How would you like a trip to space? If you're an adventurer, space may hold an irresistible attraction to you as it is full of many mysteries waiting to be explored. However, Elon Musk has an even more exciting space proposition for you: living in space permanently. If you can put your earthly affairs in order, Musk invites you to join his Mars colonization effort. The idea is for you to join the 1 million plus people that will form the nucleus of the first permanent human society on a new planet. Of course, for Musk, this is not just an adventure, as he is bent on saving humans from possible extinction. His drive is that a cosmic tragedy may befall the planet and wipe out humans completely. Transporting people to Mars is no mean feat. Musk must conceive a rocket that is powerful enough and can endure the grueling journey between planet Earth and the Red Planet. The rocket must be able to transport tons upon tons of cargo between the two planets even before it will start moving humans. However, if the rocket is not financially viable, Musk's dreams will amount to nothing. All these and numerous other factors were what Musk considered when designing the Starship. Out of sheer necessity, the Starship is the most powerful rocket ever dreamed up and attempted to be built. Thanks to a set of more than 30 powerful and newly designed rocket engines known as the Raptors, the Starship will be capable of lifting around 150 tons of cargo to orbit. The Starship, however, is also configurable for transporting humans and can take up to 100 people at a time. To keep the operating costs as low as possible, Musk has designed the Starship to be completely reusable, meaning it can handle multiple missions, just like your average airplane. This is the most complicated aspect of the design and development, but it is necessary if people without massive net worth should be able to come for a ride. The Starship has two stages: the upper stage, also known as the ship or Starship, and the lower or booster stage, also known as the Super Heavy. SpaceX wants to be able to swap the first two stages to make turnarounds faster after each launch. In fact, the company targets the Super Heavy to be ready for another flight in less than an hour. You can just imagine the beehive of activities SpaceX's facilities will become as staff runs through a checklist before giving the Starship go-ahead for the next trip. Even the fuel the Starship is designed to use points at its extreme reusability. It works with a combination of methane and oxygen. The former happens to be theoretically possible to make on Mars, which means the Starship doesn't even need to carry the fuel for the return trip. All these require the Starship to be thoroughly tested during its development, even before it's ready for its first flight to orbit. However, apart from being ready from a design point of view, the Starship needs to obtain approval from several regulatory bodies, most especially the Federal Aviation Authority, which we will get to in this video. One of the extensive tests that the Starship has to pass is cryoproof. In fact, the spacecraft has to pass several of such tests before being considered fit for launch. The new Super Heavy prototype, which Musk has declared to be the candidate for the all-important maiden orbital flight, the Booster 7, has now completed the third cryoproof test in rapid succession. But that was after the crew carried out repairs for the damages it sustained in the first round of cryoproof tests. After quickly mounting the booster on the launch mount, SpaceX has become an expert in this type of rapid mounting and checking all integrated systems. The crew put the prototype to the test. However, one thing that was interesting about this particular test is that SpaceX jumped straight to a full cryoproof test instead of proceeding in stages. The crew rapidly filled the booster to the brim with either 3,000 tons of liquid nitrogen or a combination of liquid nitrogen or oxygen. This step took 2 hours and involved the equivalent of 1.5 Olympic swimming pools of liquid. Observers watched out for the effect of the supercooled liquid on the booster's body and were not disappointed. Moisture formed on the stainless steel body of the booster, forming a layer of frost and ice. SpaceX quickly started detanking Booster 7 soon after filling the tanks. Thanks to plenty of insulated plumbing and well-insulated ground storage tanks, the crew salvaged nearly all the liquid nitrogen and liquid used for the cryoproof test. This means the company doesn't have to worry about the headache of coordinating the hundreds of semi-truck deliveries that would be required to replenish the tank farm for another test. SpaceX once again filled up Booster 7 a few days later, and this time allowed it to sit with the fuel for about an hour before initiating the detanking process. It also tested the umbilical cord. This component, also known as the quick disconnect, connects the booster to gas supplies and propellant storage. It is also responsible for power and communications. This cord was remotely retracted and reconnected, evidently simulating scenarios when a flight has to be abandoned after ignition. SpaceX needs to be sure the quick disconnect can quickly reconnect to the booster with zero human intervention if an orbital Starship launch was aborted just before liftoff, but after quick disconnect retraction. If this does not happen, it could lead to a disaster of catastrophic proportions. SpaceX is not neglecting the Starship side of the development, as it has now rolled out a new prototype, the first time it is doing so in 9 months. For keen observers of the Starship, the physical changes may be subtle but hard to miss. You may recollect SpaceX coupled the B4 booster and Ship 20 last year, affording us a glimpse of the complete Starship assembly. But this new ship prototype rollout actually finally confirms that SpaceX is using 2 entirely new prototypes for the imminent first orbital launch. Ship 24 is also the first Starship SpaceX has outfitted with a next-generation nose, the first with a significant landing propellant or header tank redesign, and the first with a potentially functional payload bay and door. The new Starship now works with the upgraded Raptor rocket engines. SpaceX is developing the Raptor in tandem with the rocket it will power. In fact, Booster 7 is now getting fitted with 33 new Raptor engines, meaning SpaceX is making room for 4 more Raptors. SpaceX is now satisfied that Ship 24 is ready to begin qualification testing, even though it's missing hundreds of TPS tiles and an aero cover cap. The prototype has been quickly moved into position at a sort of drive-by test stand, where the crew will obviously first carry out basic pressure and cryogenic proof tests. The next step after passing these basic tests is installing the ship on suborbital Pad A, which in itself has been upgraded to support the qualification tests. But, of course, we don't expect SpaceX to jump to a fire test straight away, which could be risky. The proper course to take is to first use hydraulic rams to simulate the thrust of 6 Raptor V2 engines, while the Starship's steel tanks and plumbing are chilled to cryogenic temperatures. The ship has to withstand about 1,400 tons of thruster liftoff, which is about 25% more than its predecessor ever experienced. However, for the much-awaited first orbital flight to take place, the FAA must give its approval. This has proven to be challenging as the body continued postponing the approval. Left to the COO and president of SpaceX, Gwynne Shotwell, SpaceX is ready to launch to space as early as June. What is gumming up the works is the obligatory environmental review, or programmatic environmental assessment (PEA). But it seems the end is in sight, as the FAA has updated its website to show the 4th out of 5 steps has been concluded. And this is the stage that requires cooperation with other federal agencies and local stakeholders. Only one more item could prove to be problematic, but SpaceX has made several compromises already. Let's hear what you think of the Starship in the comments section below.